when I came to AA, it was like, there's no way this is going to work. I figured AA was for the person with the brown paper bag with the bottle in it on the street. And I just found out like everything I knew about AA was false when I came into AA and actually sat and listened at the meetings. So AA has changed my life, and I'm so grateful for this fellowship. So I'm just going to start. I'm not going to go into my childhood. I'm going to start where kind of my drinking began, which was when I was about 16 years old, and my life was starting to spiral out of control. So I was playing basketball. I was playing all these sports. I was trying to show my dad that I could be what he wanted me to be. I was trying to people please, trying to please everyone in my life. And all these pressures were coming into my life all at the same time. My parents were having problems. They were arguing a lot. I was being bullied in school. And I felt all this pressure to perform. And my grades just kept getting worse and worse. And I started going downhill. And in the midst of that downward trajectory, I discovered alcohol. And it came from, like, I'm sure y'all remember, dad's or mom's cupboard where the alcohol is. And you take some and you fill it with water to keep it at the same level, right? And drink some, try it, you feel good. Going to my friend Jamie's house, finding it there downstairs in her dad's bar, going into it there. And I remember how I felt the first few times was like, I'm okay. I'm good. I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not anxious anymore. I don't feel like I want to crawl out of my own skin. I'm not depressed. I feel good. I'm okay. So alcohol began to help me in that way. And I was super excited when I discovered the drinks. I was like, this is it. I'm okay now. I'm gonna be able to face life now, because I always felt there was something wrong with me, that other guys at the school dance would ask a girl to dance and they would dance together, and I was too afraid to. And other people had groups of friends, and I never seemed to have as many friends as everyone else. And I just felt different, like something's wrong with me. Why am I different? Why do I feel different? I feel different inside. So I'm drinking before I go to school, and it was my junior year, and I'm drinking before I go to school, and then going through my classes like that, and it worked okay for 2 weeks, and after that it did not work as well. And I also was messing with pills that my doctor was giving me, and so I was combining the pills with the alcohol, and some bad things started to happen. It was crazy, actually. When I first started drinking in my junior year before school and then doing the pills, I suddenly became super popular. I was like the cool kid now, because I was, I don't know, a rebel or something, but suddenly I was super popular. So it was super exciting at that time in my life. I'm like, oh my gosh, everyone thinks I'm cool, I'm edgy, I'm hip. The girls like me suddenly, and it was like a big deal. And in that excitement, then suddenly things went off. And I'm sure all of you can relate to having the zone where I am drunk and I feel empowered and I feel strong and I can do anything, and then blackout. And then you wake up somewhere you don't want to be, right? It was the horse that started to buck me off as soon as I had gotten a good ride going. Just super frustrating. So, yeah, I'll just tell you. Apparently, when I was on drugs and drunk at school, I threatened to blow up the school. Bad idea. You definitely don't want to do that. That's just not the thing you want to do. Because it was right around Columbine too, so it was. You don't say that. So, the police came to school to get me. I ran from them. They chased me out of the school, down the street, through the fence, but they did get me, at the fence. I don't know where I was going, but they did eventually get me. Put me in a ambulance and took me to a mental hospital. So that was my first experience with seeing I can't control the alcohol. It takes over, and I'm not good. So I'm in this mental hospital, and I get a call, and I find out you're being expelled from high school, and none of your friends want to talk to you anymore because they're afraid of you, because you said you're going to blow up the school. In fact, the students organized and said, if you let Justin back in school, we will walk out. We will organize a walkout if you let him back. That was probably one of the loneliest feelings of my life when I realized. I remember I ran into one of my friends at the grocery store a few weeks after all this happened, and I said, hey, I can't remember his name. I think it was Mark or something. I said, hey, Mark, how you doing? I'm trying to see if he's cool with me still. He's like, oh, I can't talk to you. I can't. Don't talk to me, Jill. I can't talk to you. And that was like a door shut in my life, where I was like, I just felt so alone and isolated, and I couldn't go back to school. I was expelled, and that began my journey in the wrong direction, you could say. Because at some point in there, I said, okay, I tried to be the good kid. I tried to be the sports star, the basketball player, the football player, the soccer player, and it didn't work. My parents got divorced anyway. My life exploded. I got expelled anyway. So I made a conscious decision where I said to myself, I am going to give up on life, and I'm going to do whatever feels good. I'm going to self-destruct. It was a conscious decision. Like, I give up on trying to be the good kid, trying to do good, trying to be a good person. I give up. I'm going to do whatever, because life didn't work for me. So that began my journey downward. And all of it, all that would happen next, I believe was for a purpose that brought me to a point where things could change. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. So I'm 18 years old. I'm drinking more and more. I'm smoking a lot of weed. I'm doing drugs. And I'm hanging with these guys who accepted me. They were a group of misfit guys from the high school. They didn't care that I threatened to blow up the school, so I started hanging with them, started rolling with them, and we would drink, do drugs, play video games, that kind of stuff, but I could feel like something not good was coming. And I'd met a girl in the mental hospital, and we were dating. It's not the best place to meet a love interest, is the mental hospital. So I guess it probably wasn't meant to be. But we were dating, and it was weird. It was just weird. So you ever find yourself in like a relationship that you didn't mean to be in, and you're stuck because you're there already, and you just kind of look over at that person like, what am I doing with you? I don't even like you. But that's those drinking and drug relationships, right? So it's getting worse and worse, but I'm enjoying, at this stage of my life, I'm still enjoying the drinking and the drugs, right? I found something I find really interesting about the drinking and the drugs, and I want to try new things. I have this curiosity where I want to try this, and then I want to try this, and then I want to try this, and then I want to try that, and then, well, I better stay away from that and that, but then the rest are okay. So I'm sure some of you can relate to that, just an excitement with the altered states that are created through the alcohol and drugs. And I was super excited for that. What an idiot. So I was 18, and do you ever get that feeling in your drinking and drugging days that something bad is about to happen? I get this sort of, I don't know, it's like this dark cloud of doom around me, and it's very real. Like, you can feel it, like something good is not, something bad is about to happen. So I was smoking with my friend. This was when weed was illegal. we were smoking, and we were sitting at a park in my car at night. Genius, again, really smart. And the cops came up behind us, and they popped the light on in my window as I was holding the pipe, right? And I was so scared in that moment. It doesn't seem as big right now, but it was really scary in that moment. So I knew I was in trouble now. Back in those days, they would give you 30 days jail or a year on probation for marijuana possession. So I got that, and I was on probation for a year for that. And so again, that's when fear began to take over my life, like a fear that permeates every day, where it just grows, and you're always afraid, and you're always when the probation officer is like one call away, and they show up at your house, and they knock on your door, and you're just always wondering, is this going to be the day where they catch me, because I'm doing it under their nose, right? And in all that, so 2 weeks after I got the drug charge, I decided apparently it was a good idea to do some drunk driving because I was upset. And so I was hanging out with the girl from the mental hospital that I had been dating. We were not dating now, but we were hanging out, and we were drinking something in one of those plastic bottles. That's gross. I don't know what it was, but it's just nasty. One of those nasty things. And you're drinking too much, and you're drinking it like water because you don't even think about it, and then pretty soon you're blackout. That was what happened there. So I came to, and I was driving. That's never good. I came to, I'm driving, and you're like, wow. Where am I? What's happening? But I'm driving, and my emergency lights are on. It's night, and my lights are off. So all I've got is my emergency lights going with no lights. Cop magnet, right? Boom, pulled over, DUI. I remember my family, I got the DUI, hauled to the drunk tank, screaming in the drunk tank. Anyone ever done one of those? Screaming in the drunk tank? Yeah, okay, a few of us, yeah. Screaming and crying in the drunk tank. They let me out, and it was yuck. So I said some things to that cop that no one should say to anyone, threatening him and his family. That's the kind of drunk I get. So, again, I'm on paper now for sure, and so I decided I'm going to try to stay sober. My family told me, you get one DUI, Justin. You get one. That's it. I grew up in Wisconsin. In Wisconsin, you get one. It's okay. No big deal. Any more than one, you're in big trouble. So the whole family was like, we do not condemn you. You get one DUI. No more, though. So I'm on probation, white-knuckling it for 6 months, trying my first time for a long time to stay sober and clean all at the same time. And it was one of the worst dry drunks you can ever imagine. Just vicious, rude, nasty, mean. That's what I'm like without recovery, without AA, without the 12 steps. I'm a jerk. Mean, rude. So I stayed sober for 6 months, and I think probably my mom was like, thank God he relapsed, because really I was such a jerk when I was sober. I couldn't function. But it didn't take me long, and I got in trouble again. So this time, I'm on probation. I'm giving pills to my cousin to help him take a load off his mind. You're welcome. And he was under 18. He was 17 at the time. And he drove home on those pills, ended up in the wrong lane on the road, and he got pulled over. Headed toward a cop, got pulled over. And that ruined his chance at a football career. So good job, Justin. But The cops came to get me, of course, when they found out that, the police found out that I had given them the pills, and on probation, if you have any involvement in anything, you immediately go to jail. So I immediately went to jail. My probation officer just ripped into me. He yelled at me. He's like, "You could have killed him." Guy was such a jerk. Oh my gosh, he's probably right, but what a jerk. And he revoked me off probation. Had to sit the original 30 days just for a bag of dope. Man, that's frustrating. But 30 days in jail, and I went in, and that really messed me up because my worst fear had always been jail. Like, I was always really, 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 really afraid of jail. I talked to guys who were like, "Dude, I could sit in jail for a year on my head, man. Whatever, dude, I love jail." I'm like, whatever, dude. Whatever. That's fine. Jail sucks. You can pretend like it's great. I could sit on my head for 15 years. Whatever. It's awful. It's terrible. I hated jail, okay? It was my worst fear, and I'd come to realize it. I am literally in a jail cell. What happened to my life? What went wrong? It's hard to act the tough, druggy guy when you're in a jail cell. That's hard. So it was one of the first times that I began to wonder, is there a God? Is there a God who could help me? Is there something in my life? Is there something bigger than me that could help me? And that's, as soon as I got out of jail, immediately it was like, never mind, I'm good. But when you're at rock bottom, those rock bottom moments, it's like, it refines the question. Like, I really do need to know the answer to this question. What's the meaning of life? Why am I here? So I sat and I came out, because here's the thing. I was afraid to go in with the general population because I was worried that they would, I don't know. I had pictures of jail like from movies, right? Like Shawshank Redemption, or movies like that where they just, they're gonna do horrible things to you. So I stayed in isolation for 2 weeks in a jail cell by myself. And that messed up my head for a few years. And I came out of jail a different person than I went in. So you can see trauma and addiction spiraling and building like a snowball rolling down a hill. I'm just accumulating more and more trauma. And my whole life is being molded to point. Every facet of my life is pointing toward the alcohol and the drinking and the drugs. And it's rewiring my whole brain, my whole system, my body, everything toward one thing: drinking. And that process is beginning to destroy my life. So I got out, and I'm even more addicted than I ever was before. And it's becoming more like torture when I'm not on something. I have to always be on something. And I get into a period where I'm switching between substances. I'm drinking for a while. I'm doing benzos for a while, and I can say, I'm not drinking right now. But I'm high on benzos. Then I'm high on weed all the time. I can say I'm not drinking, I'm just stoned all the time. Then I'm on DXM, I'm on cough syrup all the time, and I can say, well, I'm not stoned, but I'm on cough syrup. So I'm sure many of you can relate, switching between substances to always have to be on something, right? And so it keeps spiraling, and I get my second DUI. And this was, again, a really stupid situation, really dumb. I was drinking with one girl, she left, and I got a call for some other girls to go hang out with them. And so I drove to go pick them up, but I was too drunk, and then I got pulled over by the police. So again, just really stupid, but that was really my story. Bad at committing crimes. Really not good at it. So this DUI, I finally realized something is really wrong with my life. And it was for the first time where I began to admit I need some sort of help. So that was, in a way, that's good, right? I finally realized I need help. But here's the thing. A lot of this was to try to get out of jail time, right? So you're working with your lawyer, and you're working with my dad and my family, and they get me into the Ellie Phillips Libertas Center in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. And I stayed there for 2 weeks, and they taught everything AA, everything 12 steps, which was really, 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 really awesome. In fact, this is my first exposure to AA through this treatment center that did all 12 steps. It was not psychotherapy. It was not prescribing you a million different drugs. It was 12 steps. And that was the first time where I really started to think, wait a minute, I have an issue. It's alcoholism, and this is helping. I left that facility a different person, better, right? Changed thoughts, changed ideas. They brought in AA meetings. They brought in NA meetings. They brought in speakers that would speak. I mean, it was really freaking cool, actually, because I started to realize, like, so there's other people with this problem, and they found recovery. Well, then maybe I could find recovery too. And that's where I got my AA Big Book that I still have to this day, because they had a box of old AA literature, right? Like old 12 and 12s and like old editions of the Big Book. And that's where I got it was an older edition of the Big Book, and that's where I got my Big Book, was from that box. So I came out, and I left, and I started going to AA meetings in my hometown. And that was like a revolution in my life. This is back in 2008. And I got a taste of what my life could be like without the drinking and the drugs. I started going to 3 meetings a week at the local Alano Club, at the churches in town. They'd have the evening meetings. And suddenly my life just shifted in a huge way. I mean, a huge way. I started going to college. I lost over 100 pounds during that time. I was in college at the UW in the dorm, staying clean, going for walks at night, listening to music. I got a job at the cafeteria. It was the first job I'd had in years, washing dishes, but it was something, right? It was something as a job. And I even joined an intramural basketball team. I started playing basketball again, like back when I was in junior high school. And I began to develop a sincere love for writing. I really began to love to write. And I began to read poetry at the Acoustic Cafe at the college. I started writing for my college newspaper. And I slowly worked my way up in the college newspaper to become the assistant editor. And during this time, I stayed sober for 11 months, and I was doing pretty good. And but guess what? My other kryptonite took hold. No, it wasn't the girl from the mental hospital, you guys. Come on. It wasn't her. But this girl probably could have been there. So I met this girl, and we started dating. And as we're dating and we're getting to like each other, I noticed that she's spending a lot of time with my best friend. Yeah. Anyone ever had that happen? Yeah. She's hanging around the best friend a lot. We're going for walks together, and she's next to my best friend the whole time. And I'm behind him like, hey, I'm over here. And pretty soon, she ditches me for my best friend. And I was so upset. Because I was so lonely for all those years. I'd finally met someone, right? And that was that. So I got super upset. And what does an alcoholic do when he gets upset? He gets drunk. So I got drunk, and I went back out. So this period from 2009 to 2012. I mean, the period before that there was a lot of fun stuff that would happen, parties and keggers and girls and fun drug parties and video games and things. But from 2009 to 2012 was like the dark tunnel. And I'm sure many of you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's a phase where it goes from like fun, kind of, oh, that was bad, but haha, no big deal, to, oh man, this is getting bad. And so 2009 started the it's getting bad period. And I'm talking like blacking out for days, not remembering entire trips, not holding jobs for years, family not wanting to talk to me. My mom and my sister, at some point in that period, they just kind of got together. They're in a Christian bookstore, and they just kind of looked at each other and they said, Justin's gone and he's not coming back. And they hugged each other and they cried. Because he's gone and he's gone. He's not the Justin we knew anymore. And during that time, I stole from my mom's purse, stole from my dad, stole from my grandparents. And I think one of the hardest things was that I was just not in their lives. And I could say as much as I want that I'm not hurting anyone but myself, but just the fact that I was not a brother to my sister, a son to my mother, a son to my father, a grandson to my grandparents. You guys, when I made amends to them, do you know what they said? We just want to be with you. We just want to be part of your life. Because they weren't anymore. That's what I stole from my mom, from my dad, from my grandparents, was myself being part of their lives. I don't know that I ever realized till recently just how big of a theft that was. So I remember my mom, after the divorce, she worked and worked and worked and worked, like 50, 60 hours a week to be able to keep the house, right? After my dad left, right? With us kids in it. She worked and she worked and she worked and she worked. And I remember she wanted me to go canoeing with her. She had a canoe. That's basically the only thing she had to do for fun. She had this canoe. She wanted me to go canoeing with her. For years, she would ask me, and I always said no. Always said no. My dad just wanted to go three-wheeling with me. We had these old three-wheelers, and we had this land that we'd ride them on. Every time I would say no. I think it's one of my biggest regrets. I was watching my mom work herself to death 12-hour days, sleep all day and her day off, and know that I had done nothing. What if I had gotten a job and helped? So during those 3 years from 2009 to 2012, I went back to Ellie Phillips Libertas Center 7 times. I'm sure a lot of you can relate. Going to treatment over and over and over and over and over. I remember every time I would go there to Ellie Phillips, I would think, and I was desperate, you guys. You got to understand desperation. Is this the time that I'm going to stay sober? And I'd be sitting there at the treatment center just hoping, God, maybe this time I'll get it. And they began to think of me as one of those. And I remember one of those times, 6th or 7th, whatever time it was, I asked one of the ladies there, I'm like, can you just be completely honest with me? Am I going to die? I've been here 6, 7 times, and I keep going downward. And she looked me in the eye. She could tell I needed an honest answer, and she said, You may be one of those cases that is hopeless. I was glad that she at least leveled with me. Tell me that I'm okay. Okay. So around that time, I began to get suicidal. And began to look at ways that I could maybe get rid of myself, kill myself, off myself. Overdosing on pills. The one that I always remember, and I know I've shared with some of you, was the main highway going through my hometown is called Highway 29. And one of the things I would do when I was drinking and on drugs, I would walk the city for hours and hours and hours. For days, I'd walk the city. And I walked out to the edge of the city, and I decided I was going to walk onto Highway 29. And I was going to let a car hit me. Figure that'll be a surefire way that I can get rid of myself. I can be done. I can die. So I climbed the fence. And I think it was about 5, 6 in the morning. I'd been walking all night. And I walked out onto the highway, onto the road. And sure enough, a car starts coming for me. And it's, going 60, 70 miles an hour. I didn't move, you guys. I stood my ground, and I was crying. I had tears in my eyes. And I saw the car, and I made eye contact with the guy driving the car. Saw his face. He's bald, with glasses, heavy set. I thought I was about to die. But that guy swerved around me. He missed me by an inch. The guy risked his own life for me, because he could have easily lost control of that vehicle and flipped his car and died. But there was something weird about that moment that I'll tell you a little bit later. So my body is starting to crumble as this is going on. And I'm drinking and I'm doing these drugs, and I overdose. This is in 2011, I think. Late 2011, maybe early 2012, I overdosed. And ended up in the ICU at the hospital. And my family came to see me. The doctor said, you might not make it through the night. I remember you guys being so scared. I mean, I'd wanted to die, but in that moment when they told me that I might not make it through the night, I was super afraid. I was like, but I don't want to die. Not like this. I remember I was in the ICU. And this priest came to see me. His name was Father Marion. And he walked in, and I just asked him, like, how do I get clean, get sober? Like, I'm so far down this hole. I'm so depressed. It's so dark. What do I do? And here's what I remember about Father Marion. I'd gotten so used to people looking at me with judgment in their eyes. You guys remember the look, right? Oh, I know you guys remember the look. The look in someone's eyes, family member, friend, stranger who sees you drunk. Judgment right here, right? I got so used to seeing that look, you guys, being loaded all the time. And I'm telling you one thing about Father Marion. There was no judgment in his eyes, only love. I could tell he accepted me, and he said, you're my brother in Christ. And I was like, what? I'm a druggie. That's not how he saw me, you guys. And that love, that non-judgment from him, stuck with me the rest of my life. But even then, after I got out of the hospital, I kept getting loaded. And around that time, I was taken into a government mental health facility because, again, I relapsed and I overdosed a second time, and I was taken in, and they brought me into this facility where they forced me to stay there, and then they had a court hearing. And I had not seen this before, but it was a court hearing to declare me a danger to society. Oh yeah, we went there. So my dad came in and testified about what I was doing. I was interviewed by different court attorneys, and I was declared guilty, a danger to myself and society, and I was placed in a mental hospital for an indefinite period. Called a CBRF it was. So that was, you could say that's a rock bottom in my life right there. Declared a danger to society. What the heck happened to my life? I remember one of those times I got out and I'm so traumatized by all this stuff from getting locked in that CBRF for 3 months that I get out and I'm sitting at home so PTSD, right? I'm shaking, holding the phone to call them to bring me back to the mental hospital because I can't, I'm so messed up, right? I remember one of those days. I was at my mom's house. It was like it was summer. I was looking out the front window, all the beautiful flowers and the trees, the sunshine. And I saw a hummingbird. Hummingbirds are really crazy. Their wings move so fast, they blur in motion, right? And I saw the hummingbird dip its beak in a flower. And in that moment, I thought about the universe, planet Earth, stars, galaxies, mountains, oceans, animals, humans. In that moment, I realized for the first time, there is a God. There really is a God. I think there might actually be a God who's really out there, who really made all this. So that was a huge moment in my life that I still remember to this day. Because as I hit rock bottom, and it was not any of these experiences that I've shared with you guys, it was just being at home in 2012 in September, October time period. And I was drinking every day. And I was getting more and more sick. And one of those days, you guys, I just got sick and tired of being sick and tired. I wish I've heard that a million times in AA, but it's true. Like that moment that was it. I am literally sick of this crap and I cannot do it a single another day. I can't. I just can't do it. So that day I got on my knees and I said, Lord Jesus, God, please save me. Please help me. I just cried out, you guys, to God. God, if you're there, if you're real, it was the first time, I think, in my life that I dared to say, I'm going to try to believe this. Any other time I would have said, I'm not going to listen to you. I don't want to hear about your stupid God. Get it out of my face. And my mind would snap shut, right? Old ideas. This is the first time in my life where I said, I'm so desperate, I'm so broken, that I am even willing to consider the God thing. Let's go there. Fine. Sure enough, it worked. Something shifted in me. Because the first thing God said to me wasn't an audible voice, but just a clear sense. Go back to AA. Not that. Not AA, please. Why was I so anti? But I didn't want to go back to AA. I had tried that. It didn't work, right? Didn't work a single step. But it didn't work. You know all the excuses, right? Man, when I go to that meeting, it just makes me want to drink more. Gosh, I hear that so much. I say that crap so much. I'm so sick of it. It's such garbage. It's just a lie. So I came back. A lot of those same AA guys who had seen me go in and out between 2008 and 2012 are like, oh, here he is again. I remember this one guy said to me, I'd gotten a sponsor who was working the steps. He kind of came over to me at a meeting and he says, you jerked around for all those years, in and out, in and out, in and out. And then in 2012, you just scooted back up to the table and were like, okay, you guys, how do I do this? And I was like, what? Yes, that's what I did. But I was finally willing to listen. In 2008, I was willing to go to meetings. In 2012, I was willing to work the steps. That was the big difference. So I got an AA sponsor, the meanest guy I could find, who was going to take none of my crap. His name was Randy O. And he had been sober 27 years, and he'd always be at meetings talking about when he called out to God under the bridge and blah, blah, blah. And I thought, that's the one. That's the one. That's the one. I remember I had been on so many drugs for so long, and my body was so messed up and like jacked up. Like for the first year in AA, I would sit there in a t-shirt, and you guys, my whole shirt would be wet from me sweating out the toxins for a year. I mean, the other AA old-timers are watching this kid in AA like, what the heck is wrong with him? He is sweating bullets every day. It was so weird. But I started meeting with Randy O every day. We met Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And he had me come to his house at 8 in the morning, and we went through the book. And we supplemented going through the book with the Joe and Charlie tapes as well. So, and I remember he asked me, when I first asked him to sponsor me, what are you willing to do? He said, what are you willing to do? And I said, anything. Anything. And he held me to that, though, right? Well, you said you'd do anything, wouldn't you? Didn't you say that? I did say that. Remember, we're going through the AA Big Book. We're listening to Joe and Charlie tapes. One of those mornings, I looked over at Randy as we're going through the Big Book, and the Big Book is talking all about emotions and frustrations. And I think we were going through Bill's story, right? And I was identifying with Bill's story in so many different ways. And I look over at Randy O, and it was the moment where I entered AA. So I looked over at Randy O and I said, wait a minute, stop, wait a minute. You're saying you understand how I feel? Because I always thought there's something wrong in here. I'm not just a drunk with a bottle. There's something wrong inside of me. And I realized in that moment that Randy O as well felt there's something wrong inside of him and that his case is different. And I realized in that moment, wait, so you're like me and I'm like you. And that means that AA is for me. That I feel like I'm different. I feel like there's something wrong inside of me. It's not the alcohol, really. I mean, it is, but it isn't, right? And that's the moment when I came into AA. And he looked back at me and he said, yes. Yeah, I get it. I get what you feel. Thank God for that. Thank God for that. So I started going to 8, 9, 10 meetings a week. I'd hit the 11 a.m., then the 12:15 at the healthcare center. I would go to the meeting at the healthcare center where I was once put in the mental hospital back when I was in high school, back when I was in junior high. I'd go to that meeting with Grant, and he chaired that meeting. And it just seemed like good symmetry, right? I was there at that mental hospital when I was getting expelled from high school for threatening to blow up the school. Now I'm going to go there, and that's going to be my home group. That became my Tuesday, Friday, 12:15 home group. Early on in my recovery, I was still smoking cigarettes. I was still struggling with depression. I was a mess in that first year. I had reached a point where I was like, it's like, I'm such a mess at this point. I'd rather die than actually have to go through a recovery process. I was so far gone. So it's been an extremely long journey. I've been sober now 11 years, but it's been an insanely long journey to see things slowly repaired from the damage I did to myself and my story. I mean, this was a last-ditch, last-chance effort to get sober. Last try. Unlikely to win, right? It's a long shot. But man, you work those steps. You turn your will and life over to the care of God as you understand Him. Well, again, Randy said, "Are you willing to do anything?" I said, "Yeah." Now, in step 3, I've committed my will and my life to God. So who am I to not do 4 through 12 then? Because I've already said God's in control now. So anything my sponsor said, well, if that's God's will, I have to do it. I just kept fighting, though. I kept fighting and fighting and fighting. I was not going to give up. And if I ended up in an emotional storm, cloud of anxiety and depression, I just go to bed. I'd go to bed that night and say, we'll try again tomorrow. We'll try again tomorrow. Today didn't go so well. I'm a mess. I'm going to bed. And we'll try again tomorrow. So in my first year, I went to like 12 meetings a week, 8 meetings a week, 10 meetings a week. And I shared about what was going on. I did my 4th step with Randy. 47 pages I wrote down. 47 pages. He had been dogging me to write it down. Why aren't you done with your 4th step yet? So finally I just sat down and I just wrote and 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 wrote. And I came back to him probably a week later and I said, "Randy, I got my 4th step." And he's like, "Okay." And I said, "But it's 47 pages. And he was like, "What?" I said, "It's 47 pages. He's like, "Okay." What a guy. So dude sat there. Okay, check this out. Dude sat there for 8 hours. 8 hours listening to me talk. 8 freaking hours. And we stopped. And he said, "Are you done?" I said, "I'm not done yet." So the next day we went another 4 hours. St. Randy, right? St. Randy right there. Sheesh, dude. Wow. But that just, it cleared out so much. There's so much garbage that an alcoholic accumulates. Oh my gosh, you got to do the 4th step. It's so freaking huge. Like, if you've ever been caught in the 1, 2, 3 relapse, or 4 months relapse, 3 months relapse, 4 months relapse, do the 4th step. Because I did the 3-month, 4-month relapse, 1, 2, 3 relapse, 1, 2, 3 relapse. Because guess what? With all that garbage, all that trauma, all that PTSD, all that garbage locked inside in my brain, I was never going to get sober. Not a chance. Not a single frickin' chance that this guy's going to get sober with all that trauma and jail time and drunken binges stuck inside of me and not on paper and not talked to about anyone. Are you kidding me? How can anyone stay sober like that? All that crap. I can't lock that in. I just can't. So I did. Told Randy 12 hours. 8th and 9th step as well. Again, I did it. What did my parents say to me? We want you to be part of our lives. We want to know you. We want to have you as our son. And I worked through those steps. And as a result of working through the steps, attending meetings is huge too. Don't get me wrong. That's massively huge. But as a result of working those steps, I experienced what the big book calls a psychic change, right? A change, a reshuffling of how I think, of how I live, to be able to live sober. Because everything in my life was centered around alcohol, right? My family, my money, my relationships, my thoughts, my emotions, everything pointed at alcohol. It was an idol that I worshiped. And if you pull that bottle out of the middle of that worship center and there's nothing there, I can't survive like that. The bottle is going to have to go back into the middle of that room eventually. It is. There's no other way. But with the 12 steps, if you really work them thoroughly, they will rewrite how you think and how you feel to a degree that the chairs in that room have been rearranged back to a state of sanity, right? Where it is no longer a worship service surrounding the bottle. It is now God at the center, frankly. That's what I found. Considering the damage that I did with alcohol and drugs to my brain, my body, my soul, the only way it can be changed and fixed is to put God, step 3, at the center of a new reworking of that room, right? To point in a new direction toward God. So, in conclusion, right? My first 2 years were the battle, right? But then my life started to change and move in the right direction. I got involved with the Salvation Army. Started off as an intake worker at one of their homeless shelters. I did AA meetings there, and I did recovery, and I did mental health stuff, so then I got involved with the Salvation Army Church. And pretty soon I did an internship in the Salvation Army. And pretty soon, listen, y'all got to be careful about step 3. If you take step 3 all the way and say, really, yeah, I'm going to do step 3. God is going to have his will in my life, honestly. I became a pastor. The kid who threatened to blow up the school. The drunken bozo who was threatening the police officer. That guy. That same guy. But different now, right? Different. God broke the cycle of destruction in my life. It was spiraling. It's a repeating loop, right? 1, 2, 3, relapse. 1, 2, 3, relapse. 1, 2, 3, relapse. 1, 2, 3, relapse. Suddenly, God changed it. Now I'm different. I'm just different. Do you know what I do? Yeah, I'm a Christian. Yeah, I believe Jesus Christ died for my sins. I believe he rose on the 3rd day. I believe that he's made me a new person. But guess what I always go to? Alcoholics Anonymous. To the day I die. As a Christian, I still battle the flesh. That's how we talk about it. I still battle the flesh, so I need my meetings. That's one of the biggest mistakes I've seen alcoholics make. When they become a Christian, they say, I'm done with AA, see ya. They relapse. Got to watch out for that. So I'm a pastor today. And I've been here in Owasso for 5 years with the Salvation Army in Owasso. But now I'm getting those marching orders. The Salvation Army is moving me. But I got married 60 days ago to the woman of my dreams over there, Chelsea. And we are going together to see if we can make a difference in the world. See what we can do. But it all started with AA, those 12 steps, turning my life over to God and letting him guide the pathway of my life. And if you let him do that, wow. He can take someone who threatened to blow up a school, 2 DUIs, 3 disorderly conducts, criminal trespass, drug charges. He can turn him into someone that can make a difference in the world in a good way. But I need my meetings always for the rest of my life. So that is what it's all about. And I'm scared right now. I'm moving to a new area. I don't know anyone there. But God has kept me sober in Wisconsin, Chicago, St. Louis, Rochester, Minnesota, Owasso, Michigan. I know he's going to keep me sober wherever I end up next. But only by the grace of God. So that's how that works. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.